This is Kit 2, Theme D. We're looking at homophones. This is the second theme presented on homophones. We did an earlier theme called Homophones 1 last year. This theme in particular is about single element homophone pairs. The big ideas of this kit take us back to something fundamental we started teaching students last year, and that is the homophone principle. Words that have identical pronunciations but have different meanings will, if possible, have different spellings to correspond to those different meanings. This is something that happens in English that we're very fortunate to have happen. And Pete and I recently had a conversation about homophones in general being such a wonderful launching pad for the study of real spelling and certainly of orthography. The examples here make clear how the different meanings of these words, remember that oral language preceded written language, are contained in how they're related to those meanings, their etymological background, and our spelling system allows us to represent them with different spellings, which helps us know when we read them which one we mean. Working with homophones reinforces several aspects of real spelling. Having different ways of representing the same unit of pronunciation is an advantage of our spelling system. The one letter, one sound idea doesn't work in English. Instead, we have letters and letter combinations, better known as digraphs and trigraphs, that allow us to pronounce things in different ways. By distinguishing homophones, we can reinforce the knowledge of real word structure. Homophones highlight the real phonology of the spelling system, and their spellings differ based on meaning, so studying them reveals real orthography. Remember, part of the strength in this approach is that we're dealing a lot with vocabulary. We aren't just having children memorize how letters are put together to form words. Instead, we're getting them to dig into the etymological relationships between words which result in their spellings, and by doing that, they build their vocabularies and they find out where words come from and what they mean. In preparing for this theme, it's important to remember that their English is particularly rich in homophones. Melvin has an interactive reminder on page 4 of this theme if you want to hover your mouse over that. It's good to remember also that English is an orthographic system. The first job of the system is to represent sense and meaning. Do you remember the flow chart that we have that says what does it mean first? The structures and spelling comes after the meaning. The structures and spelling try to help represent the meaning. And again, an important idea to keep in our minds is that people were speaking English before they were writing English. So the spelling system was formed around ways to articulate it through writing that still conveyed the meaning. There's some reminders about homophones that you can work with your students on prior to beginning the theme, and that a good one is that grapheme alternatives, meaning the many different ways we can make the long E sound, E-E, E-A, and so on, are a principal way that homophones are distinguished. Part of the work we did last year was determining the position of those digraphs, and if you have those old charts around, those might be good to pull out so that students can remind themselves that there are some digraphs that are based on the position, are not allowed to be at the final positions, for example. So they can't be utilized for a homophone to tell the difference structurally. You can see I provided an example on scent, the 3 homophones of scent, and how because we have these different graphemes, we're able to represent 3 different words with 3 different meanings and spell them 3 different ways. It's a benefit of our language and shouldn't be seen as something that's tricky. The other idea is synchronic etymology, and this is, simply put, the theme we did last year that looked at H-E-R-E and H-E-A-R and indicated how E-A-R is ear, which represents to where we hear from. So syncretic etymology is that these representations, the etymological representations, etymology meaning what it means, is represented through the words that are selected. You will see that sometimes there's a single letter that remains as an etymological link between a homophone and another word that it relates to, but those things were put there to help indicate to spellers why you would spell the word the way you would spell it. And why you spell it the way you spell it is always based on meaning. The one thing to think about, especially with our population of students, is that homophones are different in the Englishes. So a British pronunciation of a word may mean that it doesn't have a homophone in British English, where in American English, because of the way we're pronouncing it, there is a homophone. Keep your eye out for those. Finally, assigning homophones to their meanings. Since there is a reason for every spelling, it is always possible to justify which homophone spelling goes with which meaning. That's the main work of this theme. I started out thinking that the beauty of this theme is you could do a lot of investigations by giving children pairs of homophones to try to trace back, to try to determine themselves why they're spelled the way they are, and to defend what they find. I last year showed these on several pages across a board. I still think that would be one of the best ways to do it, is to create a large display that kids can make. In doing so here, though, the writing just got so small that you couldn't actually see it. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and put these in text this way across the slideshow. Melvin suggests that working with pairs of homophones that represent long A, long E, long I, long O, and long U will help structure this so that you can have groups of children or across different days or weeks, maybe look at one or the other, so that you're investigating homophones within those. Provided across this slideshow are some examples, but they're not the only examples. So it's easy for you to add to these, but it just gives you a place to start. And what you're doing in this theme is investigating how the meaning of a homophone helps to determine how it will be spelled. So I'm going to quickly go through these. For the long A homophones, we have main and main. You can see that these are distinguished both by roots and about the meaning. You can also see that there are some markers between, for example, made and make, where the K is a closer version than if you get rid of two letters. These finding their way into these explanations for students, the goal is not for them to get exactly what's written here. The goal is for them to investigate, to come up with their own hypothesis, and if they get stuck, the information in the remainder of this slideshow is what will give you some tools to help push them through. The very last slide, and I'm not going to talk through all of this, but the very last slide, there is still some confusion for me. And I think if you also feel the same way, it would be good to tell your kids, this one I'm not exactly sure of, and get them to do some investigating and trying to explain it back to you. Maybe together, because you're working with a group, whereas I'm in isolation, you'll come up with a better understanding than I have. So I'm going to end this theme here. I'm going to let you look at the next couple of slides just in a timed mode. But of course, if you want to print this out, you can do so. And I hope it's helpful. Thanks a lot.